Welcome back to Project Poker, guys. Today we cover 4 sessions of 1-2 match to stack cash games and go over some of our juiciest hands today. Let's get into it. We buy in for the standard £400, which is the max on a new table, grab our chips, take our seat and dive straight into the action when we pick up ace king off in the big blind in one of our very first hands. 3 limpers, button punishes them with a raise to £17, folds to me out of position in the big blind. I free bet to 60 Great British pounds, only the button calls. So we go heads up to a flop of 7-6 king 2 diamonds. I make a c bet to 60 quid and he calls again. Turn brings in the jack of clubs. So now only really losing to jacks, maybe king jack suited, especially because the jackpot for flopping a royal flush is around £90,000 at the moment. But I barrel as maybe we can get value from king queen or his ace high flush draws that would need protection from as well. So I bet 90 and he lets this go rather quickly. So a good start to the session. Let's go. Alright, we now pick up queens on the button. Another premium. This time I decide to play it trappy. When hijack limped, cutoff raise to 20, I just call. And hijack calls, taking us 3 ways to this beauty. 8-7 queen. Let's go. Hijack checks, but cut off c bets for £25, and now the action is on me. So I'm thinking the board is quite wet, yes, and a bad turn card for us will make things scary, but at the same time flushes and straights are all we lose to. I'm in position, and so maybe it's best to just call, keep hijack in the hand, and then reassess whether to raise on the turn, especially if cutoff keeps firing with his stack that has £230 more behind. What do you think you'd do here? Let me know in the comments. I do just end up calling. For better or worse, hijack is out of here and heads up now to the 5 of spades. I think it's a clean one, not a card that should hit cutoff's range. So it's interesting now when cutoff decides to barrel for 50. It might not seem like much, but for this particular player who was playing on the tighter side, it tells me he probably has something quite strong and less likely to be on a draw and betting for protection. So with that in mind, I scope out his stack, see he has around 180 more behind, and make the min raise to 100 with the plan to put him all in on the river if he calls, and he does snap call. River completes the board with the 9 of spades, thankfully no club. We should always be best here, and after 5 seconds cutoff does the work for us when he's all in around £130 effective. I of course snap, and we have one of the most unfortunate situations when he turns over pocket 7s. He probably was sure he was good with how slightly I played this one, but yeah, very unlucky for our opponent here. Anyway, we gladly take down our 3rd largest win today and move. Now, our run good doesn't look to slow down when in the small blind. We peel aces, let's flip and go. There is a £7 raise from the low jack. Action folds to me and I raise it up to £25, which thankfully low jack calls. Heads up, flop comes 6-10 2 diamonds. First to act, this flop doesn't really hit my range and we have the ace of diamond blocker, and I feel a check to keep villain and his bluffs in the hand is probably best. So I check and low jack bets 21 quid, which we of course call. Turn is another great card, the 3 of clubs, which should keep villain's bluffs in. I check again, attempting to continue the story that a lot of the time we will have ace king here or something like pocket 7s, 8s, 9s or draws, since we do hold ace of diamonds. In order to let low jack continue to bet for protection, a piece of the board here like his 10x combos, or simply allow him to continue to bluff. And now villain does barrel, but for a large bet of £70. I Hollywood for a bit, then make the call. Now river is an interesting one. It's the ace of spades. Interesting, because now we pretty much have the nuts, but also it hits our range. So I'm not too sure if this is a good or bad thing in this spot for extracting max value, and he would probably check behind with his 10x combos now and maybe bluff if we check here. So I think the only option is to bet some amount here and hope he finds a call. But what sizing do you think is best here? And let me know in the comments. I end up leading out for a sizing of £125, sending him into the tank for a minute. So he's clearly got something, but he eventually folds. I actually think in hindsight with this bet, we only get calls of his 2 pairs, which looking back at the board now, he won't have many of, if any, of in his range. So perhaps a smaller sizing would have been best here. Anyway, that's what I took away from that one. I think maybe just a smaller sizing to get value. I think potentially the ace caps the amount of value we can get on the river. So I think I'm limited to a smaller sizing and accepting that getting value from a smaller sizing is probably the best move here. But anyway, we move. Quick stack update after that hand. Now we've got £693 behind us to battle and invest with. Next up, we are in the small blind with yet another premium in Ace King off. There is one limp before one of the most capable players in the poker room raises to £10 out of the hijack seat directly on the opposite head of the table. Action folds to me, I raise to 30, which probably could and should be 40 instead. Anyway, villain calls heads up to a flop, which comes 295 rainbow. So yeah, we completely whiff here, and I'm thinking as a general rule of thumb, out of position we should play more passively, which funny enough is the advice our opponent gave me, but I follow his advice and make the check, hoping for a check back, but he doesn't. He bets 30 and definitely could give up here now, but potentially on positive tilt, or for whatever reason I make the call with nothing but 2 overs, hoping to improve on this board, but we do not. When the turn reveals the jack of hearts, so now I check, ready to give up if hijack bets, but he checks back and the river completes the board with the 4 of hearts, and now I have a decision to make. Do I try bet and get him off a potential pocket pair such as 8s or a 9x combo which are in his range and rep a jack x combo myself, or do I just give up? I eventually decide to go for it with a bet of 50 and he snaps as if I had ace king written on my forehead and shows 10-9 of hearts. Looking back, I think firstly a bet of 50 probably never going to be enough against this opponent, especially who knows I don't have many value combos in my range on the river, but I guess that was my mistake in this one, besides calling the flop in the first place. Anyway, we move on, losing a couple more smaller pots before deciding to call it a night for this session and cash out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The next day.
Back in front of the cash desk to collect my £400 buy-in for another evening session. I sit down and a couple orbits in, pick up a reasonable hand in the cutoff. Pocket aces, 3 limps before me, only thing to do is raise, and I do to 15 quid and everyone calls. Not ideal, but the flop ain't too bad at all. It's 2-8-4 rainbow. Pretty beautiful flop for preserving the equity of our aces. Action checks to me, I bet third pot and get 2 callers, so now 3 ways to a turn, which is the 3 of spades. Does make the board a little wetter, brings in the spade draw, and 5-6 is the nuts, but not something that should stop me barreling, especially now when the action checks to me again. So I bet just over third pot again for £50 this time, and only the older gentleman to our direct right, who I have never played with before, makes the call. Make me think he could have an overpair, maybe 8x of spades, or even a set if we're really unlucky. The river comes the 9 of clubs, doesn't really make the board any wetter, and I think another clean card for our pocket rockets. So when villain checks to me again, I'm going to bet for value now, as I don't think he has a set, and if he does, so be it. Shouldn't have too many 2 pairs on this board, and I mainly put him on a pocket pair, so I end up betting £150. Villain doesn't snap fold, and all of a sudden I feel like I might be valuing myself with this sizing, as villain thinks for 30 seconds before telling me
No blocking on you. Something. Well, if you're blocking, I win.
Phew. Well, I think we definitely got max value out of that hand. Can't complain. One of our biggest hands to date. Villa ends up telling me he spiked the 9 and so was clearly trying a hero call. And we move being pretty happy with the result of that hand. Alright guys, we've been running very hot and it has to end at some point. Well, not quite yet, when we peel aces again. The £5 straddle is on, hijack and button call the straddle, and action is on me in the big blind. I raised to £30. Now it gets interesting when the player in the hijack limp free bets us to £60. Button thinks for about a minute before unfortunately folding. So back to me, I see the hijack has around £400 more behind. So I 4-bet to an amount I feel he can't refuse of £130, and he does make the call. Now a huge pot brewing as the flop comes. King 8-3 rainbow. Firstly, it's dry, which is great, and he should rarely have kings, as it would have been probably 5-betted pre-flop. So I'm confident I'm winning here and just hope he holds ace king now. However, it could also be he has queens or maybe even jacks, so I make the check out of position to trap and see if he bites. I of course snap his hand off, and the turn is one of the worst cards in the deck. It's another king of diamonds, and the 4 of diamonds completes the board, just praying he's got queens, but no, he shows ace king. No! Oh, but look, we can be happy. We got it in good. I think the check on the flop was good play, but what can you do? That's poker. We continue on now, sitting with a £200 stack. Damn. Following that hand, we pick up kings in early position, go 4 ways to a low flop, and make 2 streets of value for £45 profit. Then, near the end of our session, get lucky and win a bomb pot, which you might be familiar with from watching my previous vlogs, and it's basically Omaha rules and a punt, and profit about £120 from that, as well as profit in some smaller pots, so actually end up cashing out exactly break even for session 2.
Thank you very much. Sir.
That short session done. Ran really well pre-flop, but obviously just on the flop, and then the turn screwed us over with the king. Lost £100. It wasn't vlog worthy. Don't think I'm going to show any of the hands. Yeah, that session wasn't the best. It's the same drill for the 4th and final session. We start with £400, kick things off, winning a few small pots with some premium hands before getting into the first noteworthy hand of the session. We are on the button with the snakes. The hijack opened to a tenner, cutoff called, I call, and the blinds call, which sends us 5 ways to the flop of 7, 5, 6, 2 clubs. But okay, despite our successful set mine, the board is still extremely wet, 5 ways here. Now, interestingly, small blind decides to lead into 5 of us for £33. Action ends up folding to me. I'm thinking maybe he has an overpair or top pair that he's betting for protection. Maybe got something like 2 pair, or could be on a draw as well, or even have me crushed with a straight. But I just proceed with a call to keep his bluffs in and reassess the situation in position on the turn, which is a wonderful blank ace of diamonds. Now, small blind barrels very big for £100, which is almost the size of the pot. I don't feel he's using this sizing if he had a draw. So now I think either he has us on a draw and is betting to get value from that with an overpair or two pair, or simply has us beat with something better. I think raising might be value owning myself if that's the case then, and so I just make the call. But let me know what you would do in this spot. And for the river, it is the 2 of hearts for a super clean run out. Now small blind slows down and checks, and I feel I'm probably good here most of the time. I have about 300 behind. I decide to bet for value, knowing if I get raised it's probably just a sick cooler, and so end up betting out 150 quid. After 20 seconds he eventually makes his decision and decides to call. So of course very confident we are good, and I announce I have a set. And he mucks. Could well look like he went for a hero call on the river with a 1 pair hold and a decent blocker after a clean run out of hands, but anyway, I don't know, it doesn't matter too much. Glad to take this one down, and we move. In this next one, we are on the button. We have a hijack limp followed by a cutoff limp, and I raise to £10. Small blind calls, but now big blind free bets small to £27, which the cutoff calls, I of course call, and the small blind calls, oh yeah, and we hold ace 10 of spades. 4 ways now, and before big blind even sees the flop, goes all in blind with his remaining £109 stack. But we don't mind that at all. When the flop comes 5 jack 4 with 2 spades, giving us profitable odds to call. Now just hoping the cutoff can find the call as well after a whole minute of thinking, though unfortunately releases his cards. I make the call as planned, and the small blind folds. So heads up now, and the turn nices us with a 9 of spades, and I announce to the table I have the nuts, and the river was a blank. Later small blind tells me he held king 3 of spades. So wow, on another day could even have made more from this one. Anyway, we take this one down and move. Now after running dead for 45 minutes, we pick up ace king off in the small blind. The super straddle is on by the borderline maniac on the table, which gets 2 calls before the action is on me, and I raise to 70. The borderline maniac and hijack both call, so 3 ways with over 200 quid in the pot. We just pray for the ace or king now, and it comes queen 5 6 rainbow. So I completely miss and am out of position. With the big pot I just check, and now the super straddler loose cannon bets £210 with about 200 behind. Hijack gets out of the way and instantly just don't feel I can justify a call, and I muck. Against any pocket pair I've got 30% equity and less than 25% equity against a queen x combo. So looking back, it was the right decision probably, until he just shows the table he held a deuce. We'll never know, his other card could easily be queen 2 or even pocket 2s. Anyway, on to the next one. Now we pick up ace 10 of spades, a hand which has already served us well in this session. Can it do it again? Low jack limps in, hijack raises to 13. I just make the call in the cutoff, the blinds call, and the low jack calls, so 5 ways in position to a flop, which comes 8 to ace. Rainbow, very nice. Action checks to me. On such a dry board, I could check behind here to trap and bet the turn, but instead I bet 30 for value and slight protection as it's 5 ways, hoping to get called by any combos that hit the board or hold. Pocket pairs, as this table was quite action happy after all. 3 players fold out, and only the initial pre-flop raiser to our immediate right makes the call. The turn brings in the 7 of clubs, and now hijack checks to me again, and now I think I need to check back and just get value on the river instead, or I might look too strong, might be too obvious I have an ace, so I check behind. River is another 7, this time of spades. Shouldn't change anything. Hijack checks again, so now I have to go for value. I bet 50, he eventually puts in the call, and we show our hand, he mucks, and we profit 132 from this one.
Nice hand, bro.
Now it's getting late. We were meant to leave 1 hour and a half ago, but you know, when the action at the table is just too good and you don't want to leave. So I told myself I will play one more big hand, and that time arrives now. When we get dealt the hooks in the cutoff, there are 2 limps before me and I raise to 13, but then the button on our left free bets to £75. Small blind folds and the loose cannon on the big blind calls folds to me, and I'm thinking the player who raised to 75 on my left, who's also the player I've been talking to most of this session, is very strong given how rare he free bets, and I decide to make the disciplined and slightly exploitative fold, and glad I did when after he doubles up from that hand he reveals his aces, and following that hand we rack up our chips and head to the cash desk, cashing out for £744.
Alright, boys and girls, that was vlog 14 done. Ran really hot, to be honest. Got in some interesting hands. Ace 10 of spades. Can't believe the guy on my left did not call with king high flush draw. Bit unfortunate there, could have got some massive value because he was quite deep stacked as well. Over £500 I think he had behind. I think I'm going to start doing 2 bullets now instead of just 1 bullet of £400, to 2 bullets of £400 so that I can always play deep stacked. Hopefully try to play more aggressive is the aim. As always, constructive criticism, leave it all down below in the comments. Peace.